Hello again, this is Mark Terry, Deputy Executive Director of the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association, TEPSA in other words. I'm coming to you on TEPSA Talk, and I just wanted to do a little monologue on praise of principals. When I started thinking about this, I thought, okay, what am I going to call this? I want to show the joy of being a principal, but not only the joy, but the challenges, how you react to being a principal. What are your best tips? Give me a couple of tips for being a principal. I would like to start it off with a little monologue about my own experiences, but then I want to interview principals in the field. Might be you, might be somebody you suggest, but I want to find out what the joys and challenges and a couple of tips. But I always want to end with the joy of being a principal, because I'm telling you, being a principal is the best job in the district. And I loved it and I miss it. But when I first started looking at it, I thought, okay, I'm going to put all the research in there. I'm going to put down what the experts say. And it got to be like 50 pages long. And I'm like, nobody wants to hear that anyway. They want to hear the stories. They want to hear experiences from principals, what the principal's life's like. And I'm telling you, I got my little notes all over the place. But I'm telling you, it's really interesting to see the joy that principals have in the job. I mean, it's not like you don't work long hours. You see principals up at school after everybody else has gone home. They may be in there helping a brand new teacher. They may be working on the schedule. They may be working on all this stuff we're doing right now. But there's a lot of hours in the job. There is state assessments. Who gets the blame for state assessment when they fall? I know that at one point in my career, if mine fell 2 percentage points, I had to have a plan to present to the board. And that's tough. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. But you don't want that pressure to be on the kids, and you don't want it to be on your teachers. Then there's the calendar. You don't have a calendar. You think you have a calendar. I always had my calendar I would work with it, and my secretary would work with it, and we would think, okay, we got it down. And then the next morning, bam, first thing off the bat, there's a police officer standing in your office waiting to talk to you, or there's a mad parent, or the superintendent wants you, or there's a kid who's sprained his knee, or there's always something. There's always something to take you off your calendar. So you have a calendar that's a basic outline of your day, but it ain't. It's not real. I mean, come on. Then there's the irate parents. They could be mad. They could be justifiably mad, or they could just be mad and it'd be totally unjustified. But you get to deal with those folks. You're the bottom line on it. Teachers who aren't effective, teachers who are unhappy, teachers who just don't like kids. I mean, I've had so many teachers, I love kids. And I'm like, really? I didn't know. I mean, you don't act like it. And maybe they do love kids, and maybe they're a great teacher, but they have to act like it. So you get to deal with all that, and all the teachers that people talk about, the good ones and the ones you won't want. Sometimes they have a misconception about the teacher. You get to help your community understand what those teachers are like. And then let's see. Oh my, you got people that talk about you at the Saturday morning games, and it could be good talk, it could be bad talk. My favorite story with that is one time I had a parent come to me and said, "You're not going to believe what Mrs. J is saying about you out at the soccer games. It was awful. She said this, and she said this, and she said this." And my question was, well, were there a lot of parents there? Yes. Did any of them believe her? No. Well, then who was hurt by that? Was it me as the principal, or was it her as an individual in the community? So you get talked about. They're going to talk about you, and they're going to say stuff that aren't very nice. Then there's the budget. You never have enough budget. I've been in elementary and I've been in high school. The high school guys didn't like budget time because I always brought up at the principal's meeting, question, why is their budget 3 inches thick and mine is a 1/4 inch thick? The answer was always that, well, they have so many activities that they have to go to, and there's so many UIL events they have to go to. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've got me, and sometimes I have an assistant principal, and I have to go, and I go to every child's event. I don't have 6 or 7 assistant principals to split up the duty. It's us, and we need a budget just like they need a budget. So the last thing that really always kind of irritated me as a principal was the other duties as assigned. And a lot of times, especially in a smaller district, those other duties that's assigned is helping out at events like football games. You know all the elementary kids. So can you like get them under control? You know, all the kids that were dropped off by their parents so they can have a date night, or the ones that just say, I'm going to watch the game, you go play. Those are the ones that you get to handle. I mean, really? So you get to do all kinds of stuff that nobody really likes. And it's very difficult, but you still find joy in the job. So I'm going to talk about some of those. And I'm going to try to keep it a little more relaxed. Somebody told me last week I'm way too stiff. I'm going to try to stop that. Okay. But let's talk about now. Just for a moment. I get it. There's never going to be another time like this pandemic period. You are working in a very difficult situation. And I'm going to try to stay still because last week I kept moving around so much that you couldn't hear me. I get that. This is a very, very difficult time, and it's like none other. Of course, in my era, being a principal, we thought there'd never be another 9/11. That would be the thing that would set the standard for a difficult year. Before that, it was the Challenger. I don't even know if you guys remember the Challenger. That was the spacecraft that blew up and astronauts were killed. That was a traumatic experience. But then look, there were principals in World War I. There were principals in World War II. The Spanish flu in 1917, I think it was, there were principals. The stock market crash of 29, yes, there were still elementary principals having to handle the events of the day in their schools. So I know that we're thinking that the pandemic, that this will never be matched. It will. There will be something else come along, and there will be elementary principals out there taking care of the needs of students like you're doing right now. And I applaud you for that. It's just terrific. But let's talk about a few things. I'm going to share with you a couple of stories of me just to kind of get us going on the joy and the challenges of being a principal. My first day on the job as a principal, our building was going into construction. They were replacing some carpet. They were redoing the roof. It was an older building. I thought, oh, this is great. It's going to be a beautiful building. I'm housed temporarily in the temporary buildings. So my very first day, I walk in, nobody there with me. I'm way early. And there's a man sitting there. I think his name was Larry Brown. And he's sitting there. And I'm like, can I help you? And he said, are you the principal? I said, yes. He said, I'm with EEOC. You have an EEOC complaint, and I'm with the Dallas office of the federal government. And I'm like, what? I said, this is my first day. What are you talking about? He said, there's been a complaint, and we're going to investigate it, and you're part of the investigation. I said, I had nothing to do with it. He said, well, let me ask you one question. Are you the principal? Yes. Then you're part of it. I spent the entire year with Mr. Brown as he did his investigation, and we came out smelling like a rose. But I came to realize that when you go in, and I went into, I opened up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings. Okay, I went into 5 buildings, different buildings. Every one of them, you handle whatever's left behind, whatever is occurring the year that before you came. It's your job now. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes it's totally bogus, like this one was. But no matter what, you're the man. You are the person that it ends up impacting right off the bat. And it starts from day one. So you are the principal from day one. Once you're named, everybody looks to you. So, but you know what? That's what I like. I like that. As I get through my career, I understood it and I liked it, which is why I kind of perversely wish I could be a principal during this pandemic time. So kind of weird. Okay. The other is your time ceases to be your own. This is kind of a good, bad thing. But I really kind of realized that my time was my own when I took my lovely bride down to Jerry's Pizza Shack for a romantic evening and spent the entire night sharing stories with parents who came over they were talking to welcome to our town. Hey, this is a problem I'm having. I had kids hanging on our shoulders. Is this your girlfriend? No, this is my wife. You know, but after that, you realize you're gonna have to go a long way to get a romantic evening. And even then, you're gonna see kids. I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm on the National Association Board for Elementary Principals. I get a call back from school. Hey, there's a kid from our district who's with his parents staying down the street from your hotel in Washington, D.C. They want to see you. So you don't really have that time anymore. And sometimes it can be awkward. I went out to Billy Bob's Honky Tonk. Now, I know that you had shock shaw that I would go out to Billy Bob's Honky Tonk. But we went out to Billy Bob's, my wife and I, and a couple. So I go up to the bar to get some refreshment. And as I'm about to order, I hear a little voice say, Mr. Terry. And it was one of my students, one of my elementary students who was there with her parents. So I turned to the bartender and I said, 2 Diet Cokes. You know, and I know that it might sound irritating, but I love that. You, as an elementary principal, are a rock star. I'm telling you, everybody in town knows you. Most of the people in town love you. You can everywhere you go, there's people that know you. And I miss that. When I'm in Austin, I'm now on the TEPSA staff after retiring from being a principal. I miss it greatly because I'm anonymous here. I don't like that. But when I go back to Southlake, I see kids that still know me. I see parents who come up and talk to me. They're my friends. And it's very interesting. Well, of course, the kids that know me now, they're grown. They're actually teaching and assistant principaling and that kind of stuff. But it is very rewarding. And I'll tell you, the impact you make on kids is very rewarding too. Now, let me see. What is my next one I said? Let's see. Yeah. One of the things I enjoyed about being a principal was also a challenge. I took my kids to every school that I was at. I was in inner city Arlington, had a lot of difficulty, a lot of gang activity at that time. It was way back in the early 80s. And I took them with me. I felt like it was important for the community to know that I trusted them. So every school I went to, my kids went with me. And I really valued that time. Now, some of you have different arrangements. You have different ways of making that educational arrangement for your kids. I get that, and I value that. But I can't help but think back on the going to school, coming home from school to get to hear my kids talk. I got the rare opportunity to see my kids grow up. From kindergarten through 6th grade, I got to see them grow up. And I so value that. Now, my message to you is no matter what your arrangement for your kids at, you have to save the best for your own family. And I didn't do that for sometimes. I would put everything into my school, everything into that poor little kid at school, everything into the kid having a problem, everything into the parents. And I forgot sometimes that the best should be for my wife and my kids. So as you go about making an impact on kids, remember that your family and your kids, your own personal kids, come first. Okay. Teacher decisions. Boy, one of the things that people don't realize is that many times teachers are your friends. They're your colleagues. They are people that you have to supervise. But a lot of them become your friends. And like some of my teachers, my last school, some of those teachers were with me for 20 years. I knew them. They knew me. A lot of times, if there was an issue, they didn't have to ask me. They already knew what I was going to say. And if there was a problem with say we had a new teacher and that teacher was having problems, let's say getting to school on time, my leaders would come to me and say, we got this. We got it. But even then, sometimes teachers make poor decisions. Sometimes they make decisions that impact kids, and you have to handle it. Sometimes you'll have a teacher that you know for years that you have to coach out. And the thing I would suggest the most for you, those folks deserve the kindness and respect that everybody deserves. And it's hard, but you can't skirt it and you can't get around it. You have to handle the decision. Every other teacher in the school sees what you're doing. So be kind, be considerate, but be honest. And that will come back to help you out, okay? And then the last thing, well, kind of the last thing I want to talk about is being a servant leader. You're there to serve, and you're there to serve joyfully. And I really did like that. Sometimes you do stuff that nobody else wants to do. For example, we had to have a huge school garden. And the teacher said, I need somewhere to put all my stuff, to store all my stuff for the kids. So I said, okay, we'll make you a shed. Well, I made the shed. I didn't have anybody that volunteered to help me make the shed. But the beauty of that was I could do it. Number one, I enjoyed doing it. Number two, my own kids, helped me. Neighborhood kids all come up and watched. And then parents drove by. They drove by and they honked and they waved. And I thought it was just, hey, look, I enjoy it. I'll just do it. It's no big deal. But the joy I got out of that, the impact I had in the community with something like that, it's just that you serve and you don't worry about that. But there's other stuff like the death of a child. And you get a call from the parent that says, look, my other son wants you to come over to the house, maybe to talk to him about his sister passing away. I remember very, very clearly, I had a mother who passed away. Oh, there's a father that passed away. The mother called me and asked me to come over to talk to the child. Well, I did, but I had a flight that night. I was on the board of NESP. I had a flight that day, very early flight. So I said, okay, I will do it. So I went over to talk to the kid, and it was very emotional, and it went for a long time. And I missed my flight. But to tell you, it was worth every penny. I said, okay. I went to the airport. I said, I got to go. So I will pay the extra to get there because I have to be at this meeting. And I talked with, why are you late? So I talked about, the child, and I was emotional, teary-eyed and that kind of stuff. And so after I got through with that, I handed my credit card and she handed me my ticket, and it was a first-class ticket. And she said, thank you. But you get to do that for kids. I'm just kind of getting emotional on that. Golly, I didn't realize that after all these years, it comes back to you. And then compliment kids. Even the ones you're that kid that you're like, what in the world can I compliment him about? I don't care what it is. Hey, I like that jacket today. Hey, you're a Cowboy fan? Great job. Hey, this, that, and the other. You get just the pat on the back, just noticing them has a huge difference. I've had kids come back and say, remember that day in the hall when you said this? And I'm like, sure, yeah. I'm like, no, I don't remember that at all. It was such a little thing that made such a huge difference to a child. But let me give you a couple of things that, just two ideas, two I really like to do. And it kind of goes along with that idea. Number one, I had a suggestion from Assistant Soup once about it, because I was trying to get to every kid and build them up, and say something complimentary around it. He said, why don't you have the teachers have a little card, and it's a compliment. Hey, I saw Johnny do this today, and he needs a compliment. So they'd write it down, and they would send the kid to my office, and I'd say, why, like Johnny helped Susie because she dropped all her books, and he stopped and helped her pick all her books. It was just such a kind thought that I thought I'd tell you about it. And I would go, I really appreciate that. And you know what, Johnny, I want to brag on you. Who do you want me to brag on you to? And he's like, what? I said, well, like your mom or your dad or your grandma or somebody that you want me to call up and brag on? Yeah, my dad. Okay. So I would call the dad. I'd put him on speakerphone. I'd call the dad. I'd say, Mr. Jones, this is Mark Terry up at the principal's office. I have Johnny in my office, and he done nothing wrong. He's here for good things. And he's like, because the first time I did it, the guy said, what did that little blank do this time? I'm like, uh-oh. So I had to say, nope, this is something good. And then I would say, he's here right now with me. He can hear everything we're saying. And I would just re-compliment Johnny. And I'd have parents in tears that they really, really appreciated that. So that's one idea. The other that I really liked was I had the idea that I wanted to compliment, it's kind of the same thing for my teachers. But what I ended up doing is the first day of instruction, I would bring my camera and I would go to each teacher and each staff member and I would take a photo of them. And then I would print those off and I would have a little form. Who do you want me to brag to? And they'd say, what? And I explained this my first time. I'm going to brag on somebody. And they say, I don't want you bragging anybody. Well, then I'm going to send you a superintendent with your photo. No. So they would give me their husband, or they would give me their wife, or they would give me, a couple of them gave me their children. A lot of them gave me their moms and dads, who were then probably now as old as me, but that's beside the point. They would give me their mom and dad or somebody. So I had sometimes I did a card, sometimes I did a letter, but it would always say, picture here somebody making a difference in the lives of kids every day. Thank you for supporting them. Thank you for being there for them. They are an asset to our country and our state. And then I would put that photo in there and I would send it off. And I had folks call me. I had a mother and father call me. They were older folks crying. Thank you so much. I've had folks come back years later and say, I still have that letter. So it's just a way to compliment your teachers. And I did it every year. And so there were different people that got the letter or the card. And one year, the teachers all came to me and they took a picture of me and sent it to my wife. That was special. But it doesn't take a lot to really make a difference in the lives of children and in the lives of your faculty and staff. Now, I think I got way off my off my script, but I'm telling you, you guys handle some of the toughest situations known to man with children who are hurting, and pandemics and shootings and deaths, and you meet that challenge and you're joyful in what you do. Well, next time we'll be talking to a principal out in the field, and I'm going to talk to principals in urban areas, suburban, Northeast, Southwest, up in the Panhandle, frontier, on the coast, you name it, going down the valley. We'll talk to some folks in the valley. And I want to know several things. What is a challenge right now? Right now, as a principal, or a challenge you've had as a principal? What's a challenge? And what are some things that or an idea or two that you have, like the card and the photo, that kind of stuff? What kind of ideas you had that you use to make the best principal that you can be? And then finally, I want to end that interview with what is so joyful about being a principal. So look for that. You can drop me a note at mark@tepsa.org, 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 and say, hey, I've got this principal I want to interview, or I got something I want to share, get off my chest, something I'm joyful about being a principal. I want to talk to you. I want you to listen to other principals in the field. But for now, I want you to go out there and be the best principal that you can be. Thank you.